Today we're going to be talking about pressure conversions. So, on your quiz from week one, you had a question that gave you a list of pressures in various units: psia, psig, inches of mercury absolute, and inches of mercury vacuum. And what you were supposed to do is put them in order. A bunch of you struggled with that, so we're going to work through each one of these. The key to doing this is just deciding what unit you're going to convert everything into. And we could pick inches of mercury absolute, which would be, as long as we're doing an absolute scale, then we're not dealing with any negative numbers. If we chose PSIG as our what we're going to convert everything into, we could do that, just recognizing that some things are going to be a negative number and some are going to be a positive number. For this example, I'm just going to use PSIA. You're going to do a lot of conversions into PSIA, so that's where we'll start. The first one on the list was 3 PSIA. That's pounds per square inch above absolute zero, and an absolute zero means a perfect vacuum. If you look on this chart here, that blue line at the bottom, perfect vacuum. So all this is saying is 3 pounds force per inch squared above that perfect vacuum. And because we know that atmospheric pressure is 14.7 psia, we're about 1/5 of the way to a 1/5 of the distance off of perfect vacuum. So we're right about here. Since that's pretty close to the bottom, we're going to build a chart and just stick that right on the bottom. Now, as we convert the others, that may move. We'll see. 17 inches mercury vacuum. So the next one on the list, this is the toughest one because it is talking about distance from the relative zero of atmospheric pressure. What that means is, see this purple vertical line in the middle here? On the red, where it crosses this red line, that would be 0 inches of mercury vacuum. And then as you move down this line, you have 1 inch mercury vacuum, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 29.92 inches of mercury vacuum. Well, 17 is just past halfway to a perfect vacuum. So we know it's right past the middle here somewhere. And on the scale, we can see that's already going to be above the 3 psia, but we need to put it on our scale and do the conversion just so we know exactly where it's at on here in psia. So 17 inches of mercury, our conversion for inches of mercury to psia is 0.49116. And I think this is where anybody that missed this stopped, right? You just did the conversion and then ended with 8.35, and then we're confused why it was wrong. Well, it's because that 17 inches of mercury times the 0.49116 is only converting this number, this value, into a PSI value, right? You still have to remember that the vacuum means its starting point is here. So it's talking about 8 psi down from the relative zero. So in order to figure out where exactly on here it is, we subtract 8.35 psi from 14.7 psia, and that gives us 6.35. And we know on the psia scale, 6.35 is a little below half. So that matches with where we can see it would have landed on the inches of mercury vacuum scale. It's a little below middle. And we can see already it's above the 3. So let's put that on the 17 inches of mercury vacuum, which converted to 8.35 pounds force per inch squared. We had to subtract that from 14.7, which left us with 6.35 pounds per square inch absolute, which means above zero rather than from the relative scale of relative zero of atmospheric pressure. Okay, let's do another one. 8 psia. Well, that's already converted. Nice. It's already in psia. We already know it's on this orangish yellow scale here, and it's 8 above absolute zero. And that's a little more than halfway to atmospheric pressure, so we already know it's going to be above the other two. So 3 psia, 6.35 psia, 8 psia. All right, well, that's pretty easy so far. Let's do another one. 10 inches mercury absolute. Now, like the 17 inches of mercury vacuum, we have to do a conversion with the 0.49116 psia per inch mercury. And that, like I said, is from your steam tables, that conversion chart in the back. But since it's in absolute, we already know we're starting from this blue line, the absolute zero on the bottom. So whatever we convert to is from this point going up. So 10 inches of mercury times 0.49116 is 4.9 psia above absolute zero. Okay, so that throws a wrench in our scale. Since the 10 inches mercury absolute converts to 4.9 psia, it's above 3 psia, but below 6.35 psia. So now our chart is building. So we've got 3 psia, 10 inches of mercury absolute, 17 inches of mercury vacuum, and 8 psia so far from lowest to highest. All right, with 2 left, both of these are in psig, that's pounds per square inch gauge. And if you remember, gauge is relative to atmospheric. It's how many pounds per square inch above or below 14.7 psia, this red line and horizontal line in the middle of your page. So we know we're 4 pounds and 12 pounds above this relative zero, which tells us they're above all the other ones we've sorted out. All the other ones were actually vacuums. They were below atmospheric pressure. So that's 4 values so far below 14.7 psia, and now these 2 are above 14.7 psia. And to get the actual to convert psig to psia, we simply add atmospheric pressure, 14.7 psi. So that gives us 18.7 psia and 26.7 psia. That should be pretty obvious where they fall on the scale. And they're both at the top. So there's our order. From the bottom to the top, the lowest to highest, we have 3 psia, 10 inches mercury absolute, 17 inches of mercury vacuum, 8 psia, 4 psig, and 12 psig. And you can see it both as the converted units here on the left of this vertical timeline and as the original units on the right of the vertical timeline. I hope that helped. Take care.